Imagine a perfect Sunday morning. The sun, a warm embrace over a tranquil harbour, sparkling off the calm waters. Sailors are stirring, some preparing for church, others for a leisurely breakfast, perhaps a game of cards. The air is thick with the promise of another peaceful day in paradise. But beneath this serene veneer, an invisible storm was brewing, a tempest of steel and fire that would, in a single brutal stroke, shatter America's innocence and drag a reluctant nation into the deadliest war humanity had ever known. This was Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. In just a few terrifying hours, the world as they knew it would cease to exist. A surprise attack, meticulously planned, executed with chilling precision, was about to unleash hell on earth, forever changing the course of history. To understand the inferno that engulfed Pearl Harbor, we must first rewind to the decades leading up to that fateful day. The early 20th century saw Japan, a rapidly industrializing island nation, emerge as a formidable power across Asia. Driven by a desperate need for resources, oil, rubber, iron, and a fervent belief in its imperial destiny, Japan embarked on an aggressive expansionist policy. Manchuria fell in 1931, followed by a full-scale invasion of China in 1937, igniting the Second Sino-Japanese War. The United States, though officially neutral, viewed Japan's growing militarism with deep alarm. American interests in China were threatened, and brutal atrocities shocked the world. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's administration began to impose sanctions, gradually cutting off vital resources Japan desperately needed to fuel its war machine. In July 1941, Japan occupied French Indochina. The US, with Britain and the Netherlands, responded swiftly with a crippling oil embargo. This was a direct blow to Japan's survival. Without oil, its mighty navy would be paralyzed, and its entire war effort completely doomed. For the Japanese High Command, a confrontation with the United States became not just a possibility, but a clear, stark inevitability. They believed they faced a stark choice: retreat from imperial ambitions, or strike first, decisively, to secure the vital resources they needed. The clock was ticking, relentlessly. The path to war, once shrouded in shadow, was now clearly and ominously illuminated. At the core of Japan's audacious strategy stood Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the brilliant commander-in-chief of the combined fleet. His intellect shaped the very path to war. Yamamoto was a complex man, educated at Harvard, and served as a naval attaché in Washington, D.C. He understood American industrial might better than most. He famously warned, "I can run wild for 6 months. After that, I have no expectation of success." He knew Japan could not win a prolonged war. His only hope was a swift, decisive blow to cripple the US Pacific Fleet. This would buy Japan precious time to consolidate its gains. The aim was to secure dominance in Southeast Asia, and perhaps force America to negotiate a favorable peace, avoiding a prolonged, unwinnable conflict. The audacious target for this devastating strike: Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, the vital home base of the powerful United States Pacific Fleet. Yamamoto envisioned a surprise attack using carrier-borne aircraft. This was a revolutionary concept at the time, designed to neutralize American battleships. The plan was not only audacious and incredibly risky, but also meticulously crafted. Every detail was considered, every potential outcome analyzed. Months of intense, secretive training followed. Pilots practiced torpedo runs in shallow waters, using specially modified torpedoes for Pearl Harbor's depths. Dive bombers honed their accuracy with precision, while navigators painstakingly memorized every contour of the Hawaiian Islands. Secrecy was paramount. The attacking force was a formidable armada: 6 aircraft carriers, 2 battleships, 3 cruisers, 9 destroyers, and 3 submarines assembled. This silent armada would sail in complete radio silence, taking a circuitous northern route to avoid detection and maintain absolute surprise. The fate of an entire empire now rested squarely on the shoulders of these young men and the unwavering precision of their machines. Meanwhile, at Pearl Harbor, a deep sense of complacency, bordering on outright negligence, had settled over the American command. They felt secure. Despite increasing tensions and multiple warnings from Washington about a potential Japanese attack somewhere in the Pacific, the specific threat to Pearl Harbor was largely dismissed. Military leaders believed Hawaii was too far for a sustained Japanese assault. They thought any attack would target US possessions in the Philippines or other Pacific outposts. The mighty US Pacific Fleet, including 8 battleships, lay clustered together in Battleship Row. This formation made them an incredibly easy target. Anti-torpedo nets, which could have offered vital protection, were not fully deployed. A crucial layer of defense was simply absent. Radar installations were new, and their operators inexperienced, often dismissing unusual readings as mere anomalies. A critical blind spot emerged. On the morning of December 7th, one such radar operator, Private George Elliott, detected a large formation of aircraft approaching from the north. His superior, Lieutenant Kermit Tyler, dismissed it as merely a flight of American B-17 bombers expected from the mainland. A fatal error. It was a tragic miscalculation, one of several missed opportunities to avert disaster. The entire fleet was literally a sitting duck. Their planes were lined up wing to wing on airfields, making them easier to guard against sabotage, but also incredibly vulnerable to aerial assault. The men and women at Pearl Harbor lived in a bubble of perceived security, unaware that dawn would bring an unprecedented act of war, scarring the American psyche forever. In the pre-dawn hours of December 7, 1941, while Pearl Harbor slept, the Japanese strike force silently reached its launch point, 230 miles north of Oahu. Having traversed thousands of miles of open ocean, the air was cold, the sea choppy. Yet a palpable anticipation crackled among thousands of men aboard the carriers. At 5:30 a.m., the crucial order was given: stand by to launch. A hushed tension filled the air as the final moments before the attack began. Deck crews worked feverishly, preparing the first wave. 183 aircraft, bombers, torpedo planes, and Zero fighters stood ready for their devastating mission. As the first rays of light began to pierce the darkness, the roar of engines filled the air. A powerful symphony of destruction was about to begin. One by one, the planes lifted off, disappearing into the vast expanse of the Pacific sky. Each aircraft carried the weight of a nation's audacious plan. Led by Commander Mitsuo Fuchida in his Nakajima B-5N Kate bomber, the formation headed south, maintaining strict radio silence, a deadly swarm. Their mission was clear: to deliver a devastating blow that would cripple the American fleet. The fate of the Pacific hung precariously in the balance. Below them, a small fleet of Japanese midget submarines, launched hours earlier, attempted to sneak into Pearl Harbor, adding another layer of surprise. Tragically, one midget submarine was spotted and sunk by the destroyer USS Ward at 6:45 a.m., marking the very first shots fired. This critical warning, the first sign of aggression, was not fully processed or understood amid the chaos of a peaceful Sunday morning. The American fleet remained tragically unaware, basking in a false sense of security as impending doom hurtled swiftly towards them from the skies. A nation, lulled by peace, was about to face an unprecedented act of war. The calm before the storm was almost over, forever changing history. The silent fleet had approached, the first shots fired, and the unsuspecting giant was mere moments away from an awakening it would never forget. At precisely 7:55 a.m., the first wave of Japanese aircraft descended upon Pearl Harbor. The tranquility of that Sunday morning dissolved instantly into a maelstrom of explosions, gunfire, and desperate scream. From above, Commander Fuchida, observing the unsuspecting harbor below, famously radioed the code Tora, 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 meaning Tiger, 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 confirming complete surprise. Low-flying torpedo planes unleashed their deadly payloads, targeting the mighty battleships lined up precisely in what was known as Battleship Row. The attack was merciless. The USS Arizona was struck by an armor-piercing bomb, penetrating its deck and igniting the forward magazine. This caused a catastrophic explosion, lifting the massive ship out of the water. In mere seconds, over 1,177 men were tragically killed. Many were trapped inside the burning wreckage, a horrifying fate sealed in an instant. The USS Oklahoma capsized after being hit by multiple torpedoes, trapping hundreds more sailors. They scrambled to abandon ship, swimming desperately through burning oil, dodging strafing bullets. Anti-aircraft guns, initially silent in shock, began to bark back with fury. Yet many American planes were tragically destroyed on the ground before they could even take off. Pilots like Lieutenant George Welch and Kenneth Taylor managed to get into their P-40 Warhawks. Bravely, they engaged the Japanese Zeros, scoring several kills against overwhelming odds. But their heroism, though profound, was a lone beacon in a vast sea of devastation. The attack itself was relentless, precise, and utterly brutal in its execution. The air grew thick with smoke, the smell of burning fuel, and the metallic tang of widespread destruction. Pearl Harbor, once a symbol of American strength, was now a scene of unimaginable horror. Just over an hour after the first strike, at 8:54 a.m., the second wave of 167 Japanese aircraft arrived. They focused on airfields and other harbor facilities, ensuring any remaining American air power was completely neutralized. Devastation continued relentlessly. By 9:45 a.m., the last Japanese plane departed. The scale of destruction was staggering. 8 battleships damaged, with 4 sunk. 3 cruisers, 3 destroyers, an anti-aircraft training ship, and a mine layer were also damaged or destroyed. Over 180 American aircraft were obliterated. Many aircraft were destroyed before they could even leave the ground. The human cost was even more tragic. 2,403 Americans killed. Another 1,178 were wounded. Japanese forces, in stark contrast, suffered minimal losses. 29 aircraft, 5 midget submarines, 64 men. The attack was a tactical triumph for Japan, achieving its primary objective of crippling the US Pacific Fleet. But Yamamoto's gamble had a fatal flaw. The US aircraft carriers, crucial to naval power, were out at sea on maneuvers, completely untouched. Crucially, vital oil storage facilities also escaped significant damage. Submarine bases and repair yards at Pearl Harbor also escaped significant damage. These oversights would prove catastrophic for Japan in the long run. As the smoke cleared, revealing a harbor littered with wreckage and oil-slicked waters, a nation awoke to a new, brutal reality. News of the attack spread like wildfire, reaching mainland America via frantic radio broadcasts and newspaper headlines that screamed of treachery and devastation. The initial shock and disbelief quickly turned to widespread outrage, and a fervent, undeniable desire for vengeance swept across the American people. On December 8, 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt stood before a joint session of Congress, his voice solemn but resolute. He delivered one of history's most iconic speeches, famously declaring December 7th as a date which will live in infamy, a powerful call to action. With overwhelming bipartisan support, Congress swiftly voted to declare war on Japan, marking a profound and unified turning point for the United States. Just 3 days later, Germany and Italy, key allies of Japan, officially declared war on the United States, irrevocably drawing America into World War II. The attack on Pearl Harbor, though intended to cripple America's fighting ability, instead galvanized a previously isolationist nation with unprecedented fury. The sleeping giant that Admiral Yamamoto had so greatly feared was now wide awake, roaring to life with an unyielding national determination. America's immense industrial might, once focused on consumer goods, rapidly shifted its entire focus to urgent wartime production. Factories across the nation churned out planes, tanks and ships at an astonishing, relentless rate, fueling the massive war effort. Millions of young men volunteered or were drafted, eager to avenge Pearl Harbor, embodying a fierce commitment to justice and victory. The attack, a tactical victory for Japan, was ultimately a monumental strategic blunder of epic, unforeseen proportions. It ensured America's full and unyielding commitment to total war, forever altering the course of global history and its future. The attack on Pearl Harbor remains a pivotal moment in history, a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of miscalculation and unchecked ambition. It fundamentally reshaped America's role on the world stage, marking the definitive end of isolationism and the beginning of its emergence as a global superpower. Profoundly, the lessons learned from that day profoundly influenced military strategy, intelligence gathering, and national security for decades to come. The USS Arizona Memorial, built over the sunken hull of the battleship, stands as a poignant testament to the lives lost and the sacrifices made. It's a place where oil still weeps from the ship's fuel tanks, a constant reminder of the tragedy beneath the tranquil surface. Pearl Harbor taught the world that surprise attacks, even in an age of advanced technology, are always a possibility, forever changing how nations prepare for war. Trauma. It solidified the resolve of an entire generation, forging a national unity born from shared trauma and a collective mission. Even today, the phrase, "Remember Pearl Harbor," evokes a powerful sense of patriotism, vigilance, and the enduring cost of freedom. The tranquil waters of that Hawaiian harbor may have returned, but the echoes of that infamous dawn will forever ripple through the annals of time. A permanent scar on the memory of a nation and a world forever changed, its legacy continues to shape global affairs.